Shalom. Welcome to Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman. I am joined in the studio today by my normal co-host, Mark Finkelstein of the Jewish Federation of Greater Des Moines. And we're also joined in the studio by Helen Eddy of the Healthiest State Initiative and Sarah Rice of the Des Moines Area Religious Council. Before we get into our discussion, I'd like to thank our sponsor for the show, Dr. Ronald Bergman of Bergman Folkers Cosmetic Surgery and Spa, for his continued support. And we wouldn't be able to do what we do without his support of our show. So with all that, normally our show talks about foreign policy and particularly the Middle East, but because we're in the holiday season and people at this time of year certainly think about giving. We just came through Thanksgiving last week. We are on the last day of Hanukkah today, and we're thinking about miracles and light at the darkest time of the year. We are today thinking about those people whose lives are darkened by hunger and who need our hope, need the light that our food can bring to them to get hope into their lives and to make their world a brighter place. And so our discussion today will be about hunger. When our show returns in January, we'll get back to the foreign policy and politics stuff that we normally do, but today we're just doing a special show about hunger. So thank you for joining us, and I'd like to welcome our guests. So we have in our studio, like I said, Helen Eddy and Sarah Rice, who work together on a number of issues as leaders of organizations that try to help Iowans live better, healthier lives. And Sarah, I know that DMARC has now got a new facility downtown.
We're
you want to tell
there.
a little bit about what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. We have been in leased space for essentially our entire lives, the Des Moines Area Religious Council, and we are moving to a brand new facility that is just south of downtown in the Western Gateway District. It will move us from a 1,600 square foot warehouse to a 6,000 square foot warehouse, which will give us so much more, both opportunity to buy low and store food until we need it, but also greater opportunities to bring in groups of volunteers and be actually handicapped accessible, and a lot of great things with this building. So we're very excited. We're actually moving the warehouse piece of it starting in the middle of December, but we're not moving the office piece of it until after January, so that we know this is a time of year when people like to give. We don't want to disrupt that ability to give. So we're going to wait till January to move our offices into the space.
Sarah, can you tell us a bit about the food process collection to begin with?
Sure. We collect food from literally all over the community. And in fact, we have red barrels in all of the Hy-Vee stores, as well as in some of the other grocery stores in town. People can actually buy food directly at the grocery store while they're there and put it in those red barrels. We have about 130 congregations, of which the Jewish congregations are members, and those congregations all collect food for us. We have all kinds of corporate partners, including Hy-Vee, who collect food for us. Mostly, though, we have a huge network of donors who donate cash, because we can buy so much more food with cash than a customer can when they're purchasing at a retail rate. We can buy from the food bank and from wholesalers, and it's much less expensive that way.
And how many volunteers do you use on a weekly basis?
Oh, my goodness. We use about between 60 and 90 volunteers in a month.
Wow.
So lots and lots of volunteers. And part of the problem with our current space is that they're just little, like tiny sidewalks for people to walk on. And we really want there to be more room so that we can make sure that our volunteers are safer. Yeah, but it's huge. It's a huge effort. There are people collecting food and money for us literally every day of the year somewhere in the greater Des Moines community.
Now, I'd like to get our viewers to understand who the two of you are. So, Sarah, could you say a little bit about what you do,
Sure.
what your job is, and what DMARC does?
Absolutely. The Des Moines Area Religious Council was founded in 1952. and became interfaith, so meaning beyond just Christian communities, in the 1970s. We have 130 some member congregations, and they are our base. Because we don't believe in all of the same things, we have this huge spectrum of beliefs. We don't talk a lot about advocacy or about what we believe. We talk a lot about what we can do. And we do a lot of things for low-income people and people with needs in the greater Des Moines area. We have child care subsidies, we provide rent and utilities assistance, but our biggest job by far is that we manage the food pantry network for the greater Des Moines community. We have 13 food pantries, and they're all on a common database so that we can track all of our clients. And we provide healthy food. We realized, and this is where Helen and I have so much conversation in common, we realized a few years ago that we had clients with 3 times the incidence of diabetes of the general population. So we stripped as much sugar, fat, and salt as we could out of our food supply. It's all whole grains, and about a quarter of what we distribute now is fresh fruits and vegetables.
What percentage of the Des Moines population do you think are served by the pantries?
We serve 34,000 different people a year, and any of those people is eligible to come 12 times, once a month. So that's a significant portion of the greater Des Moines population. Our pantries, our fastest growing ones actually are in the suburbs, which is very true of what's happening economically in this country since the recession, that the suburbs where people lived who were essentially stable but then were destabilized when we had the recession, and that's not fully recovered. We have pantries in West Des Moines, Ankeny, Johnston, and Urbandale, in addition to several in Greater Des Moines.
What would constitute the package that people would pick up?
We have in our package of food 4 days worth of food, 3 meals a day, and it's all of the kinds of food that are on the My Plate. Used to be the food pyramid. We all grew up, I'm sure, with the food pyramid, but it's now My Plate. So it's all of those kinds of food in healthy versions, low sugar, fat, and salt.
And we'll welcome Helen Eddy too. What do you do? What is the Healthiest State Initiative? And I'm unsure of what you do for Hy-Vee as opposed to the Healthiest State Initiative too.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about both of those. Okay. I am a Hy-Vee employee, and I am Assistant Vice President of Health and Wellness for Hy-Vee. My background is actually in pharmacy. I'm a pharmacist by training and spent, close to 20 years in pharmacy and pharmacy operations, but part of that work always included working with patients, developing specific disease trainings for our pharmacists, education programs for patients. And then in my tenure as in pharmacy operations, we started hiring dietitians at Hy-Vee. And very proud to say that we now have over 200 dietitians in our retail stores as a free resource for our customers. So as we started expanding what health really meant at Hy-Vee, I moved jobs and I moved into health and wellness, overseeing dietitians and our natural and organic sections. Really, as I said, anything that was health related that wasn't pharmacy ended up kind of in my realm. And then there were some conversations that started back in 2011, actually around May of 2011, between my former chairman and CEO, Rick Juergens, Governor Branstad, John Forsyth at Wellmark, and then Doug Reichart at Holmes Murphy, about really how we could shine a spotlight on Iowa and make Iowa the healthiest state. So this little project turned into a very big project. So now my primary focus is on the Healthiest State Initiative and has been for 2.5 years.
What are some aspects of the initiative?
Well, our focus is to make Iowa #1 in well-being by 2016. And we chose well-being over just health because we know that emotional health and physical health go hand in hand, and that if we're really going to have a healthy population, we need to look at really a well-rounded, holistic view of our communities, our businesses, our schools, and the individual. So we look at workplace well-being, we look at emotional health, we look at access, basic access to things like fresh fruits and vegetables, healthy food, clean water, safe places to exercise. We look at the communities and say, are they walkable? Are there ways for us to put natural movement back into people's lives? So it's very very broad and well-rounded. But we are bringing together, I think, some really interesting partnerships and coalitions and getting people really pointed in the same direction. You know, Sarah and I have had lots of conversations because one of our goals in Healthiest State that we've identified is that we really need to increase Iowans' consumption of fruits and vegetables. We rank 43rd out of 50 states. So while we're in the breadbasket of the world, we still don't really eat as healthily as we should. And so conversations have included talking to DMARC and food pantries to understand how we can help all parts of our community meet that goal.
What do Iowans eat? I mean, we're 43rd at eating options. I mean, are we eating grains and meat? Is that what we're eating? What are we eating?
Well, we're not eating enough fruits and vegetables. If you've looked at the My Plate format, and which is a great simplification over that food pyramid, you know, the message really is you start by filling your plate first half full of fruits and vegetables, and then a quarter of lean protein and a quarter of whole grains. And I'd say we probably have that reversed most of the time.
Yeah. If I could do one quick answer to that. Okay. I used to work with a rural congregation that I love in Ziering, Iowa, and they have a harvest dinner. And what they prepare for the harvest dinner every year is chicken and noodles on top of mashed potatoes. Which is, I think, a real example of what Iowans eat, high in starch. I know. My husband
favorite
too.
Meals.
My husband too. But it kind of fills up with starch.
Sometimes turkey.
But always white. It's
Yes.
it's a white food. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I think some of that goes back to our farming and agricultural roots. My grandparents were farmers, and I looked at, you know, how they ate, and, you know, my gosh, I mean, this day and age, they'd have breakfast coffee, which included, you know, something, and then lunch, and then coffee, and then dinner, then coffee. I mean, 6 meals a day. But they also farmed very differently than we do now. It was a lot of, you know, still physical labor and exertion. So what we tell people, it's not about telling people what not to eat. We're focusing on positive messages of what else you can do. Add more fruits and vegetables to your diet. So learn to love that broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts.
So let's talk to somebody who's totally clueless, and they're hearing that their diet is probably not good, and they come to a Hy-Vee store. What do? How do they find the dietitian? How do they get started in the process?
Well, they can. The dietitians all have offices in the Hy-Vee store. So if they can't find the dietitian office, they can go to the pharmacy. They can go to the customer service counter. On the website, each store has a web page that has the dietitian's schedule, so they'll know what they're doing and where they are. So they can look there. But there are a lot of things, actually, even if they cannot find the dietitian, that are in our stores that can help guide that nutritional choice. We use a system called the NuVal Nutritional Scoring System. It is an index that was developed by a team of scientists led by Dr. David Katz from Yale University, and it really looks at it takes that nutrition facts panel, which I'm not a dietitian, and, you know, it's confusing to read, and it really boils it down to one number, from 1 to 100. 100 being the most nutritious, 1 having not as much nutritional value. We don't like to say that there are any bad foods, but as you can imagine, things that are in the produce aisle really hit that 90 and above. But where it's very, very useful is it sits right on our Hy-Vee shelf tag. You can look, for example, in the cereal aisle, and on every price tag, see that score. And so then you can compare kind of similar products and see, boy, you know, okay, here's some cereals that my family would eat, but you know what? This one maybe has a 40 versus a 20, and so I can trade up. That's what we talk about. Our dietitians also do a lot of work with tagging their dietitian picks throughout the aisle, so you can find in any section where the dietitian has put a tag and a sign with their picture usually on it saying, hey, this particular product is one of my choices. So we try to make sure that there's something in every section of the grocery store that can help people make what we talk about are incremental changes. It's not that you have to turn your whole diet upside down, but what are little baby steps that you can make? Because we do know that when you take a baby step in terms of improving your diet, you can have some huge results in your overall health impact.
And how does that impact people who are on, say, the SNAP program or something like that? How do those people spend their dollars more wisely and get more nutrition for what they're getting? How do you go about doing that?
So one of the anomalies in this country is that the food that is the highest in terms of cost per calorie, thinking of calories as fuel, the foods that are the highest in terms of cost per calorie are also the foods that are the most nutritious. So when you're a SNAP user and you're looking for calories, you're going to look for those foods that are low in nutritional density, but also low in terms of cost per calorie. So it's actually an economically rational choice to choose, say, potato chips or brownies, high in calories, low in cost, just with a really bad long-term effect in terms of your health. So SNAP donors walk into the grocery store, SNAP users, and what they see is that they can get carrots, but it's actually for a fairly high cost compared to the number of calories they're consuming. So a lot of them will go in the direction of healthy foods, but it's at a cost. They get to buy less food when they're buying foods that are low in calories but high in nutritional benefit.
Can either of you tell me about the use of organic products? There's a cost differential. Is that cost differential translate into a healthiness factor anyway?
Well, I will talk about the Nuval system and tell you that when they based it all on science and the research that was out there. And in the Nuval system, no credit is given for whether it's an organic food or not organic food, because it's not been shown scientifically in the studies to have a positive effect on health. And everything that is involved in the Nuval system has been clinically documented, scientifically documented to either have a positive or negative impact on your health. Now, people may believe that it does, and that's great, but the science right now does not substantiate that. So our message has always been that there are plenty of economical ways to eat healthier in your grocery store. And it does not have to be organic. That can be a great choice, but doesn't have to be.
And it doesn't even have to be fresh. So there's not a lot of nutritional difference between frozen peas and fresh peas, or between frozen corn and fresh corn. The reason that we went in the direction of fresh fruits and vegetables is because when you don't have access to them, which most low-income people don't, it is like the most exciting thing in your life when someone finally gives you fresh fruits and vegetables, which means they eat them. And we think they are more likely to eat the number of servings they need of fresh fruits and vegetables if what they have is variety and freshness compared to a diet of canned peas, canned corn, and canned beans. So what we're trying to do is increase fresh fruits and vegetables so that people will eat more of the servings that they need.
Let's take a short break, and when we get back from the break, I want to talk about holiday foods as we're sitting in the middle of the holidays. We'll be right back on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I'm administrative manager
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
Shalom. Welcome back to Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman. I'm joined in the studio by Mark Finkelstein and also by Sarah Rice of the Des Moines Area Religious Council and Helen Eddy of the Healthiest State Initiative. And we were talking a little bit about healthy eating and nutrition, and I had brought up the SNAP program. You talk a little bit about what the SNAP program is, and we had also talked a little bit about budget cuts and the impact of those on poor and hungry people.
So SNAP is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and it's what we used to think of as food stamps, but this is the new name representative of the emphasis on nutrition. And it is the way that the government supports low-income people who need food assistance. So we have about 47 million people right now who receive SNAP in the United States. The Food Research and Action Council estimates that about 1 in 4, that about 1 in 4 people are eligible but are not participating in SNAP. So even though we have 47 million that are participating in SNAP, there's this huge additional number who qualify for it but are not currently participating.
And what does participating in SNAP mean?
You get a monthly benefit dependent on a whole variety of circumstances like income.
So it can differ. It's
It
not
differs,
the same for
and
every one
it's
of those.
based also on number of people in the family. There are a whole batch of factors that are used to determine your SNAP eligibility. Nationally, about 43% of SNAP recipients are employed. About 21% of SNAP recipients are elderly. So it's a whole group of people. I think people tend to think of SNAP recipients as people who don't work and are just sitting around, and actually that's not true at all, especially in a society where the living wage is not the wage that's being paid for most people's jobs. It's a way that the government helps to support people who are not making enough money and who are food insecure.
And in terms of Iowa, what type of food insecurity do you think we suffer?
We have in Iowa about 12.6% of our population who are food insecure at this point. Yeah.
Now, what does food insecure mean?
Food insecure means that you do not have access for all the people in your family at all times for enough food to eat in order to sustain a healthy life. So you don't have enough access because primarily of resources, finances.
And that 12% breaks down mostly rural, perhaps, or?
It's a combination of rural and urban, and it's a different kind of problem. One of the things that's true about Iowa is that when you're in rural communities, you really don't have access to grocery stores without travel. Mm-hmm. So that's a huge barrier for a lot of people. In urban areas, surprisingly, it's also a transportation issue. A lot of our low-income people don't have reliable transportation or have none at all, and so they have a hard time getting to grocery stores. The Hy-Vee has Harding Hills Hy-Vee, which is in sort of a low-income neighborhood surrounded by a lot of low-income people. And we're always very grateful for the decisions by our corporate grocery partners to sort of stay in those areas that are low-income, because so often there isn't access to good food in those neighborhoods.
Now, what is the impact of the sequestration and the budget cuts on Iowa and nationally, and on individuals too?
So there are different things. We just saw on November 1st a reduction in SNAP benefits, but it wasn't exactly a cut. When the recession hit, the SNAP benefit was increased, and that increase sunsetted on November 1st. So we went back to the prior SNAP benefit level. That means that individual recipients lost about 5.5% in value in their SNAP benefit, but it also has a benefit to the state that we've now lost. And maybe you can talk a little bit about that, because SNAP is spent at the retail level at grocery stores.
Well, and the numbers that we've heard are somewhere in Iowa around $42 million in impact overall. And so for grocery stores and other vendors, I mean, SNAP benefits are used lots of places. Lots of places that, folks just don't have the money to spend. But more so than that, I mean, it's on our radar because we know that we need to be sensitive to what's going on in our communities and look really hard at where we can provide some great value and help folks stretch the dollars that they have and still have healthy options available to them.
Right.
So it's not just something that I guess that as a retailer that we ignore. We're sensitive to it as well, because it does have a significant impact in our communities and on the lives of our customers.
How far does a SNAP allocation go per week or per month?
So I can talk about per meal.
Per meal.
In light of this reduction that just happened, what we're looking at now is that the average SNAP client has about $1.40 per meal for that person to eat. So across a family of 4, you can do the math. But if you think about eating every meal for $1.40, I think you'll realize it doesn't go very far. And the SNAP cuts that Congress has been kicking around would be disastrous, just disastrous. As vibrant and healthy as our philanthropic system is in a place like Des Moines, we are not up to the task of providing all of the food assistance that we would need to if SNAP benefits were substantially cut. And I know that for grocery stores, it would be a huge cut in their profit, I would think, as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's dollars that they can that get spent in the economy.
Yeah.
Now, the SNAP budget is embedded in the Farm Bill. Why is it in the Farm Bill, and what stage of processing is that legislation at?
So I'm not going to, he's making a face at me.
I don't know the answer to these questions.
I can say a little bit about that. I'm not an expert at all on that aspect of it. But it's attached to the Farm Bill because of at about the same time that we started realizing that we had a real poverty problem in this country, the war on poverty under Lyndon Johnson, we also realized that our farmers needed some support. And so those two things got tied together. Support for farmers, sort of risk management for farmers, got tied to the need for food. Obviously, we have farmers and they're producing food, and we can use that food to feed our low-income people. So that was where it originally connected.
And what's the impact of farm subsidies and use of biofuels and things like that on food supply, and particularly on food prices and all that?
Oh man, this is like farm economics. I don't think that I'm very well positioned to really address that kind of policy. I'd say call Secretary Vilsack, but what I would say that we're very focused on through the Healthiest State Initiative and working with community partners is how do we use space that we have even in our urban landscapes, unused land, to start to move some of those kinds of atypical pieces of property back into food production that stays local. We're looking at expanding community gardens, for example. From my Hy-Vee side, I'm very, very proud of the work that Hy-Vee has done with our one-step program. We have a bag of russet potatoes that when people purchase them in a Hy-Vee food store, a portion of those proceeds go into a fund that will goes to putting out community gardens. And we're just announced actually this week that we have enough funding for $750 grants, 500 of them that can go back out across really our entire trade territory. But knowing the strong network of people that we have through the Healthiest State Initiative, we expect a fair number of those to stay in Iowa. And for someone starting a community garden, $750 for seeds and supplies and things really, really goes a long way.
So what is a community garden, and what do you do with them? How are they helpful?
You would too?
Well, I'll start, and then you can jump in, Sarah. Actually, they take all kinds of shapes and forms. Some of them are on church properties, affiliated there. We see a number of them as teaching gardens on school property, where sometimes some of that food goes back into the school and the school lunch program. We see them as part of neighborhood associations on lots. There really isn't a one-size fits all to them.
There are also, right now in this community, refugee groups who have gardens because they were agricultural in their original country. One of the things that happens in this community with community gardens and church gardens and all those kinds of gardening efforts is that if people produce too much and are not able to either consume it or sell it, it oftentimes comes back into the emergency food system. And so we see a lot of that produce coming into our food supply, especially in the summer, of course. One of Iowa's challenges is we don't have a very robust processing network in the state to turn, say, apples that are available in October into applesauce that's available in January. So that's something that could still use a little more work. But community gardens have a huge, huge benefit. They just sort of cross all different kinds of people.
Well, and a lot of the work that's going on across Iowa now in the counties is that every county is being charged with putting together a community-wide food plan so that they understand really what's being grown, what the storage capacity is, and really looking at a systems approach. So I think that over the next few years, we're going to see a better understanding of how we can fill some of those gaps that Sarah's identified.
Where in local government are some of these decisions being processed? Such as, are we talking the county level or
government in general? I mean, are these all state level decisions, local decisions, or so many of them federal decisions here?
Well, the SNAP kinds of decisions are obviously federal decisions.
Yeah.
At the local level, for instance, it can be a decision of a county or a city to free up land for community gardens or to support them in some other way, to have the Parks and Rec Department tilling ground so that people can use it or something like that.
Absolutely. Happens on all levels.
Now, one of the things that I have dealt with dealing with the healthcare situation is the idea of food insecurity being based in not being able to afford housing, medications, and food, or being able to afford two of the three of them. And when healthcare is not affordable, and somebody gets sick, then they may need their medications, and therefore take food out of their housing or food budgets. Do you see a lot of that in what you do at DMARC?
We see a lot of that. We know that a lot of our clients are seriously challenged in terms of health. And actually, we did a study a few years ago where we just had them draw on a map of the city the places that they usually go in a day. Most of those places were to secure either assistance of some kind or health care of some kind. That's just the sort of loop that they live in. But we see clients who only, for instance, purchase half their medication in order to be able to buy food, or they let go of food in order to buy school supplies. It's a sort of very small pot of money, and they have to make it stretch very far. We make food very easy for them to get. We don't have income requirements or anything like that. If you come in the door, we're going to give you food. And even though, for instance, we only have a 4-day food supply that we give out, there is always food available. You can get food every day in our pantries. We work with Meals from the Heartland, which is the packing operation. Their food is always in our pantries, is always available to anyone. We're not counting that. So there's always food available. There's always bread products. It's a lot of the time they're fresh fruits and vegetables. There's always food available in addition to our 4-day box, because we know that people don't have enough to eat and that they need to buy medication. They need to get access to other things.
What else comes? You're talking about bread products. What kind of bread products are you talking about?
Well, if you think of, for instance, your average Hy-Vee bakery or your average Panera bread, there is always stuff left over at the end of every day. So there's sort of a huge volume of bread product that goes into the pantry system. And we actually cut back some on the food that we distribute as carbohydrates because there is just so much of it available in the system for people already.
Helen, you're from the pharmacy business to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
What can you tell us about the pricing of generics these days?
Well, they're become very, very affordable. I think most of the major chains, including Hy-Vee, have $4 generic programs, and a lot of products are kind of moving from branded to generic, so they're becoming more and more affordable. I guess the thing that I would say that whether someone it's terrible when people can't afford their medications, but one of the issues that we see in pharmacy is adherence even when they have the medications.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we always say the most expensive medication is the one that's not taken properly.
Right.
But when the conversations that we're having about nutrition and exercise and healthy communities, to me is really talking about the separation between what's health insurance and what's really about health. What's really about helping people never get to the point of being so dependent on the health insurance and the health system. You know, and we need to work on both at the same time, but the focus of the Healthiest State Initiative is really trying to reduce the demand of people going into the healthcare system, needing the medications, having diabetes, having all of the things that go along with that. I mean, it's usually not just diabetes, it's a cardiometabolic disorder where lipids are high. It's a tough thing.
How has Iowa been doing in the Healthiest Initiative? Do you have ways to track how we've been doing as a state?
Absolutely. We are measuring our progress by the Gallup Healthways Wellbeing Index. And when we started the process, we were ranked 19th. We're currently 9th, but we still have lots of work to do. Our obesity rates are probably some indication that we're maybe starting to level off a little bit, but still 2/3 of us are overweight or obese. So I'm going to say, you know, we're going the right direction, but we still have work to do. The job's not done.
We're a healthy state in the wrong way. Is that what you're saying?
we're trending the right way. But you know, we this nation in Iowa, we didn't get to this point overnight, and we're not going to correct it overnight. It's a long-term strategy. We're really, really trying to change the culture of Iowa, and we're trying to get people out moving more, trying to get people to think about intentional movement. You know, can I ride my bike to the grocery store? Can we take a look at our streets policy so that we have? I love the addition of the bike lanes and the markings here in town. Those kinds of things are important to get people healthier. Usually, it's about 100-calorie gap for most people between overconsumption and the exercise. So you're not talking about huge changes.
Except this time of year. Let's talk about this time of year.
We just forget about the holidays.
We just came through a week in which I know I ate way more than I needed to eat. And what do the food pantries and Hy-Vee do during this time of year? How can people come in and eat better, and what's going on?
We always have a supply of fresh fruits and vegetables that are flowing through the system. So we are not just dependent on gardens. We actually buy from a wholesaler. And that's really important. So when you're eating your great big meal, have some things in it that are not covered with butter and cheese. So broccoli that's steamed, as opposed to the way I grew up eating broccoli was in a pan with Velveeta cheese and breadcrumbs over the top, which is fabulous in terms of taste, but not really as good for you as your basic steamed broccoli. So in any meal, if there can be one or two things even that are not, that you haven't added sugar, fat, and salt to. Sugar, fat, and salt are what tastes good to us, and that's why our food processors have added that stuff to so much food, and we love it. I mean, it's really hard to give up the things that are high in sugar, fat, and salt.
You didn't have the broccoli soaked in butter and then covered in cheese?
It probably was. But I grew up, in my family, we gardened. My father planted 42 tomato plants one year, and if you're a tomato plant gardener at all, that's enough tomatoes for Greater Des Moines. So we grew gardens, and we canned and froze, and that's what we learned to eat.
Do the food pantries do anything different for the holidays specifically about
The
holiday
food
appropriate
pantries
foods
do
and
not.
things?
No, we really don't. There are lots of different organizations that provide food baskets, but we are there every day of the year with the basic supply of food. So we are grateful for all the sort of extra food work that's done around the holidays, but we continue to do the basic work.
Is there an agency that monitors the homebound and their relationship to getting nutrition?
Yes and no. I mean, one of the things that this country provides also is the Meals on Wheels, the food delivery system. And so to that extent, those people are being watched out for. And we also have senior sites where they don't necessarily feed the homebound, but they feed the older adults. So there are some things that this country does. We've always had around SNAP participation, this sense that in Iowa, but in other places as well, there aren't as many elderly people signed up for SNAP as we could. And we actually attached to the Meals on Wheels meals cards that said, call us if you want help signing up for SNAP. The first time we did that, we were inundated with calls. So I think our operating assumption has been that older adults in Iowa are too proud to ask for assistance. And actually what they didn't have a way to do was reach out. And so when we put the card in their hand, they reached out for assistance. So I think there are probably older adults who need help, who need to be on SNAP, need the benefit, but we haven't figured out a way to get that information to them in a way that they can respond to.
Well, and some of them don't realize that they should be.
Exactly.
More. They think it's perfectly fine for them to eat almost nothing.
Yes, and I think we used to measure SNAP eligibility differently, and now in Iowa, it's a little easier to get in terms of income requirements. So I would say if an older adult had applied several years ago and was turned down, they should do it again. They should apply again because they might be able to receive assistance. And it is all good, even if you only got $10 a month. That's good. That's more than you had.
So when you come into the grocery store and you're looking for healthy stuff for this time of year, how do you find stuff specifically this time of year?
Well, our dietitians are great this time of year about putting together healthy holiday tips, how you can survive, that holiday party with tips on what are good things to put on your plate. We talk about my plate at the holiday times. Can you put those fresh fruits and vegetables on your plate before you start putting, the pigs in the blanket and all those other good treats? But, our message has always been, it's everything in moderation. And one of the trends that's out there are bite-sized little treats and portions. So you can still have a little taste of that thing that you like. It's just maybe smaller in size. So like a little cupcake or a cake ball and those kinds of things. But there are lots of ways, cranberries at Thanksgiving time, great source of antioxidants and a very healthy thing. So how can you get those into your diet? The produce aisle. Everything that's in there. Can you maybe try a baked sweet potato instead of your favorite one that's got the marshmallows on top? I like them baked, so I'm pretty happy with that. My mom mashes them up sometimes with bacon and caramelized onions. Bacon's not so good, but very flavorful. But there are lots of ways to do it. And one of the things we also talk to people about is simply reducing your plate size because we eat with our eyes, and our plates have grown over the years. The average dinner plate, if you look at Grandma's China, used to be closer to 10 inches in size, and they've grown to about 12 inches. And we eat with our eyes, and we'll fill our plates, and we'll eat what's on our plate. If you put the same amount of food on a smaller plate and then also on a larger plate, and ask someone, well, which plate has more food? They'll pick the smaller plate because we eat with our eyes. So you can reduce your caloric intake by simply reducing that plate size. You can reduce it by 27%. And that's not even changing what's on the plate. It's just decreasing the portion of what you eat.
Helen, what is a moderate amount of exercise that people really need?
30 to 60 minutes of walking most days of the week. That's what we tell people. You don't have to belong to a gym. Getting out and walking is great. If you have a bicycle, getting out and ride your bicycle. One of the challenges that we have in Iowa is that we kind of hunker down in the winter and don't want to get out and move, but yet our neighbors to the north in Minnesota, they don't seem to be afraid of the cold. So, we want to talk to folks about where can you walk? Where can you walk inside? Outside here in the malls, and can you walk the perimeter of your Hy-Vee store? Can you walk in place?
Right.
Any movement is good. And it doesn't have to be all at the same time. You don't have to do 30 to 60 minutes all at the same time. You can do it in little short breaks throughout the day and still receive the same benefit.
So you can do something like, for instance, when I go to the Hy-Vee in my neighborhood, I park the furthest away from the door instead of everybody who's trying to get the closest parking lots to the door. But there's actually a trend right now, too, of walking meetings. Because we all do so many meetings, you can actually do them walking around in your space instead of all sitting at chairs. And I don't know how you would do a walking webcast, but
It's hard when you got fixed cameras.
Yeah.
We got to squish you together in the camera. It's hard to move. So, what are the challenges facing us right now in dealing with hunger, and what do we need to do?
well, one of the challenges obviously is decreasing government support on the one hand, but increasing need on the other hand. We know that we've just been running some numbers at the pantry, and for over the last 2 months, in each month, our usage is 10% ahead of where it was in that month last year. So we always expect an increase in November and December, but we're actually 10% ahead of where we were last year in November and December. We think because of the economy, yes. Yeah.
And so I guess what I'm asking is what would you like us to do to help out? What are the things that we can do to help combat hunger in Iowa?
One of the things that I always talk about, obviously, is to donate, to go online and donate food, donate whatever you can to your neighborhood food pantry, to the food pantry network. The other thing I always say to people, though, is if you really want to help low-income people eat in a healthier way, eat healthier yourself. Go to Hy-Vee and eat healthy food. That drives the market. The food that we want to consume, that we put our money and our resources into, drives the market. So if we are all eating healthier, I'll have a lot better chance of being able to make sure that low-income people eat healthy as well.
Well, we all respond to the environment that's around us, and so I think one of the things that we're looking at from the Healthiest State Initiative is making sure that there's access, not just at a food pantry, but if someone is, their access for grocery shopping isn't a Hy-Vee, but it's a convenience store. Mm-hmm. Can we get healthier options in there for them? From our perspective, to really address this problem, it takes all sectors working together. I mean, it takes us looking at community gardens. It takes grocery stores. It takes convenience stores. It takes the food pantries. And it takes the schools. It takes all of us pulling together to really start to make an impact on this.
And one of the things, for instance, that a lot of congregations do, they cook. They have a night a month that they cook at the shelter or something like that. If you're cooking for low-income people, cook healthy food. We tend to provide meals anytime that we're cooking for, say, potlucks or anything like that. It's our comfort foods. We default to broccoli with butter and cheese and cracker crumbs because we love it and it tastes good. But you have to realize that if you're cooking for a shelter, every single group is thinking in that way. They're providing comfort food. So we need people, when they're helping, to help in healthy ways as well, to just always think about health as they're cooking.
What do we know about the school system and their providing food for their students?
Well, there have been some tremendous changes in the school nutrition program over the last couple of years, and actually kids are getting more calories now than they did prior to the changes, but they're different calories. And so I know you hear a lot of the buzz that, oh, my kids aren't getting enough food. Actually, they are, but it's different. And I think Sarah made a really great point earlier. It takes a while for us to train our taste buds to enjoying new flavors. We're pretty well trained to love sugar, fat, salt. So when you start serving different things, it takes kids and adults alike, some time to adjust to that. But schools are really focused on providing healthier options for kids. I mean, they really are doing a good job with their breakfasts and lunches, looking at before and after school snacks. But there are still things that we can do. When we look at things that really don't have to do with school nutrition per se, but school policies, if you stop using food as fundraisers, those are some of those cultural things that can start to make an impact. Can you celebrate birthdays once a month instead of every week? And can you encourage healthy treats to come? Now, my own son, he always tells me, oh, Mom, don't be that kind of mom that sends those things. And of course I am. I'm that kind of mom that sends those kinds of things. Yeah. But, it's changing. But schools are very, very, very focused on it. And I feel that what's going on in schools is pretty positive.
Yeah. A lot of school systems, and Des Moines is one in particular, have people whose job is to take fruits and vegetables into school classrooms and actually help the students learn to eat. And that has a really powerful impact, because when kids eat that food at school and love it, which they usually do, then when they go to the grocery store with their parents, they'll start saying, can we get this thing? I know we had an experience when we first started doing fresh fruits and vegetables of delivering them to a homeless youth center. And the kids were so excited to get vegetables. And one of them actually said, I get so tired of Panera bread leftovers, because they get it all the time. And they craved fresh, which is not in any way to criticize Panera, which I love. It's just that you can't make a diet of that. You have to have other kinds of fruits and vegetables, and when you eat them, your body responds. It likes them.
Are there special programs that restaurants do this time of year that are helpful to the food pantry?
One of the things that we're working on in Des Moines is trying to develop a more robust way to take foods that haven't been served yet from restaurants and make sure that they get into, for instance, the shelter system. We haven't in Des Moines developed that very highly yet, so we're working on that, trying to develop ways for restaurants to donate, in effect.
Is there an incentive for the restaurants to donate? Do they get some sort of reduction in taxes or something?
Mark, that's a really good idea, and I don't know the answer to it.
Okay.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you're that you want to let us know? I know that DMARC is doing fundraising for one.
Always.
Let's start with that. What's going on with fundraising for the new pantry and new warehouse and all that stuff?
Well, we're doing extra special fundraising right now for the new warehouse and office space, and we're very excited about the warehouse and office space because of what it allows us to do. So in our present location, we've never been able to bring a semi truck onto the parking lot. So we've never been able to get deliveries of big amounts of food. So we've actually built a pit dock, which I know Hy-Vee has pit docks and has had them for years, but this is like a wonderful new thought for DMARC that we'll have a pit dock and we can bring semis onto the parking lot. We need to raise about $1.3 million to do this work. So we've reached out to our corporate partners, but we will also be reaching out to our individual donor partners and our congregational partners to help us do this thing. Yeah, but we fundraise every day. It takes a lot of money to feed 34,000 people in a year and to do, 30,000 meals a week, that much food through our system. So we are always fundraising.
Anything Healthiest state initiative-wise that people should be aware of?
We actually have 5 focus areas. Nutrition is one of them. But shortly after the beginning of the year, you're going to start hearing more about some action plans that we'll be delivering into the state on nutrition, tobacco use. We want to decrease the number of Iowans who smoke. We'll be doing some work with in the workplace with skills training, actually for supervisors, but also soft skills training for employees so that they can be better employees and more successful in their job, which again ties into nutrition.
Right, exactly.
If we can help make people successful employees and more employable, then that's great. We're also going to be looking at lifelong learning. We know that Iowans don't say yes as often as we would like to the question of, did you learn or do something interesting yesterday? So we'll be focused on that. Higher in urban areas, but how do we engage people in our rural state to take advantage of the libraries that they have and the cultural assets that they have? And then finally, the last area that we have a focus on is dental health and getting Iowans to the dentist at least once a year for that preventative exam. We know that dental access is a huge issue in Iowa, but even among Iowans that have dental insurance, 1/3 of Iowans with dental insurance don't go get the preventative exam. So, we're going to start with the low-hanging fruit and try to get those folks to at least take advantage of their benefit. But at the same time, the Iowa Department of Public Health has just received a very wonderful grant from the CDC to expand their iSmile program that serves children in need as well as adults. So that's great news.
Tell us about the contact numbers where people could get in touch with you.
People can reach us either by calling our office at 277-6969 or going to the website, www.dm, like Des Moines, dmreligious, religious.org.
And I can be reached at 515-267-2800. That's the Hy-Vee corporate office number. They'll route you to me. But we also have a website, iowahealthieststate.com. We are on Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook, like everyone else, and you can follow what we're doing there. We do have resources currently on our website that people can link to. You mentioned the holidays. We have Healthy for the Holidays ideas and tips from the Hy-Vee dietitians out there. And we hope to get more people engaged in some of the work that we have going on.
Well, thank you, Sarah Rice and Helen Eddy, for joining us on Understanding the World today. And we wish everyone a happy holidays and a healthy and happy new year. Thank you, and we'll see ya in the new year.
Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.